Uh, Kapil is the co-founder, CTO at Delivery, which is one of the most successful startups in India. So, Kapil, welcome to Atenu, and thanks for taking out the time to talk to all of us. We are all super excited to have you over here.
Yes.
Right? So we
Awesome.
have
Thanks a lot for having me. I'm also pretty excited. This is the first time I'm doing a web forum discussion of sorts. So, if I'm not audible, please let me know on this. Let me know if I'm going too fast or slow.
sure. I think you're audible. Your voice is echoing a bit, though. Maybe because of the meeting room or something.
Yeah, I'm in a meeting room. I thought this headphones would be better, but if you want, I can try taking them off. If that helps.
Yeah, I think that might work better. Let's maybe try it out.
Give me 1 second. Let me just turn these off.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, this is much better actually.
Okay, is this better?
Yeah, this is much better. We can all
Awesome.
hear you perfect, loud and clear. So we have to give it some format, although we do want to keep the AMA kind of candid and flexible, but we have curated a list of questions which have been rated the most and which are most relevant. So we'll start off with those. And
Sure.
then towards the end, we'll open it up to other people if they have any other remaining questions. So if there's some topics which they need, which haven't been covered yet, right? So let's dive straight into it. Let me also share. No, I think it's fine. Yeah. So the first question is around uh, once a company hires a full stack developer, then what are the first set of tasks assigned to that person? What are those tasks look like? And is there any onboarding or training or something like that in the beginning?
Absolutely. So at delivery, so for example, I'm guessing the question is more around people who are hired directly from campuses or people who have been very new to the industry, right? So typically when we hire from campuses, we look for certain specific skill sets. And I don't expect people to be very good in coding. I do expect people to have the basic understanding, basic analytical understanding. Can they write a pseudocode? Can they make sense of the problem? Can they articulate the problem back to me? So we normally come with a very basic expectation, but inherently is the person smart, is the person excited, passionate about what we do or not. So typically when such folks come on board, when we recruit people from campuses, like I think this year we got around 70 odd folks from different campuses across the country. So typically there's an induction program which goes on for a week to 2 weeks. In the induction program, we focus a lot on who we are, what is our culture, what did we do in the past, what are different lines of businesses that we have. The idea is to make sure that people are aware about overall the different things that delivery does. We do a bunch of things from transportation, fulfillment, cross-border, freight, etc., so that people get the entire flavor. The second part is more around on a day-to-day basis as a developer, what are I'm going to be working on. So we, for example, work a lot on Python and Node.js and a bunch of variety of things on the background on the databases side of things. But the expectation over the first couple of weeks is to give a very high-level overview of, hey, what does it mean to code in certain languages like Python, Node, if people are not aware of it. We also recently started a program with the Coursera where we have a curated list of courses where people can quickly pick up on their own and just get started. The other thing where we spend time on is how is our source code structured? What is a GitHub repo? What does code versioning mean? Get people access to different services, be it Jira. How does the Jira work in the SDLC lifecycle process? What is the SDLC lifecycle process? A lot of time when and I also remember when I was in college, used to be individual coders most of the time. Or even if we were collaborative with 2 or 3 people. So the whole sense of, there are multiple people, a big team, and everybody is pushing the code into the same repo. How does it impact? How does the regression work? What is regression testing? We try to give an introduction to all those things. And the third part is basically to have people go and visit the field. The idea is that we want people to get a sense of what does it mean actually when people use our product. In our case, we make products for our own people to make them more efficient, to bring the cost down. How do we use them on the ground actually? And that's very, very helpful. Typically, I think as developers, we get excited about, my code, my process, and we push it to the production environment and then we are done. We seldom look at what happened after a week, 2-3 weeks, 2-3 months, how things have evolved. And given, the current ecosystem that we live in right now, things evolve, things change a lot. And it's very essential for people to know that, hey, if I build something, how does it actually go and impact on the ground? So the idea is just to walk people through that process. And finally, we have people getting onto the real projects. When people get onto the real projects within a week or 2 weeks, we don't expect them on day one to be able to start cracking and start working on some of the complex pieces. The idea is we give them some of the small enhancements, some of the small areas where they get a sense of what code is structured where. If I'm making some changes to a Node.js library, how should I, pull that code out? How should I test it on my environment? How should I go and set up my local environment on my laptop? When I push it to my staging environment, what does it mean? Did I break something? And people who do break things in the first couple of weeks typically get a good idea of what not to do or what are the things to be taken care of. So that's a high level how the induction happens. We don't have a very elaborative induction process. Our belief is that get people started, push them in the right direction, give them a nudge, and let them pick things on their own. Yes, we will provide the resources where people want to deep dive, or if people get stuck somewhere, please raise your hand in 15-20 minutes. Let us know. There will be somebody to help out. But you guys have to find your way out yourself. So that's how, in our case, the induction happens over there.
Makes sense. Thanks, Kapil. So a few follow-up questions, which we also have further down in the list. Could you elaborate a bit more on the delivery company culture, as well as how do you try to assess for these things in the interview, as well as what are the particular things which you do as a company to make sure that the new joinees are able to imbibe that company culture early on? And
Sure.
Second is, as you also mentioned, that people who break things. So especially in our context, especially as software engineers, we do end up breaking things a lot. But when a person is fresh out of college, they look at people, especially people like you, and they see that, how do I get there? Is this person like always writing perfect code? So if you could elaborate that on that a bit as well.
Sure. So on the culture bit first, right? So there are a few things that we really value. The thing that we really value is the person thinking from first principles. If you look at the background of all of 5 founders, right, none of us had any logistics background. Pretty much all of us, some people came from consulting, some from telecom. I was from the technology side of things. The idea was, hey, how do I look at a problem from first principles? I don't want to just pick up things the way they have been done in the past. And how do we start building on it, right? So that's one of the things we look at. How can person think about solving a problem? Can the person go and break it up into smaller chunks? Are those smaller chunks meaningful? And then, start building up things on it. So that's something which is one of the critical things for us, right? And every time when, and during the induction process also, there are, an hour or 2 hours discussion around what our core values are, what our vision is, why our vision is what we are. For example, not example. So the current vision that we are looking at is that we want to be the OS for commerce in India. We want to be the underlying platform for everything logistics across this industry. So anybody wants to do anything in logistics, they should be able to use us, either our technology or our services, and get the things done, irrespective of whatever it is. And we want people to start developing things on it. So that's what we want to be. Why is that critical to us? So we talk a little bit about that during the induction process. And then the core values, right, which is the first principles, things around how do I solve a problem? I should have the passion and the motivation with which I look at or think about solving problems. Until it doesn't get done, I have to continuously keep on figuring out how do I solve that thing, however difficult that problem would be. Those are some of the things that we look at and we keep talking about a lot. Typically, and these are some of the things where the leadership or we as founders, when we go and talk to different teams. For example, earlier this week, I was in Hyderabad and I was catching up with the team over there. And these are some of the things I keep on reiterating. I keep on telling the people, like, guys, I understand what we're doing, but please keep in mind when you're looking at a problem, keep the first principles. Don't just continue building on something which was assumed that 2 years back it made sense. Now it may not make sense. For example, 2 years back or 3 years back, we did not have enough data collection points. Mobile phones were being launched, GPS devices were just coming up. But now we have tons and tons of data from the field devices. We know exactly who is where our fleet is. Now the problem which we're trying to solve around maybe the routing side of things, capacity allocation, utilization, what we did 3 years back, we are in a different position from where we were. So how do we look at the new set of assumptions and start building things on that? And the idea is to keep on reiterating these things. Whenever there are reviews happening at an architecture level or at a code level, the idea is to keep on bringing these things back. Because often when, as a developer, we are so focused on a specific Jira or a specific requirement, we also fail to ask the question saying, hey, why am I doing this thing? What is the business objective over there? Is it going to help me increase my revenue share? Will it improve my customer experience? Will it help me get my costs down? Will it improve my service precision? So those are some of the things which we need to be reiterating with people and bringing it back. And that's also which I encourage a lot on my team members to question those things. If the product person or the client has asked for something, it doesn't mean that is always right? You're free to ask questions, you're free to push back over there. And until you're convinced, you should continue to understand why we are doing those things, right? Often we miss the point about what are those business objectives or what are the outcomes over there. We typically miss the big picture. And then that's something which is very critical because we may only be solving a small puzzle at the end of the day, but the larger picture is something else. So the encouragement is definitely to look for a bigger thing over there. On making mistakes, Divyam, as you were pointing out, yeah, we all make mistakes, man. We all learn from our mistakes. So one of the things which I do tell people or encourage them is to, hey, experiment, guys. Experiment with the new technology. Experiment with a different way of doing things. If you're launching a new feature, let's say on a mobile app, launch it in, 2 different things in 2 different places. See how people behave over there. Pick one and just continue going deep into that one. Try out, figure out. Something may work, something may not work. Something that worked, 6 months back may not work now. But keep trying that stuff, right? Keep on pushing new code, keep on pushing out new things. As long as you don't bring the overall systems down, I'm perfectly fine with people trying out stuff. We do bring our systems down. Don't get me wrong over there. We do have major outages. One of the biggest outages, at least in the last, I think in 2014 or so, is where somebody accidentally dropped the entire production database, which powered everything in the background. And then we had 2 sleepless nights over there, right? So, those things are there, which, we do make mistakes. So the database was one major mistake that we did. And somebody accidentally went to production environment and did a truncated entire collection over there, right? So anyway, and day-to-day basis as a developer, we miss out on certain things. Sometimes we don't, like I'm a big Python fan. I do a lot of coding in Python. I forget to run Pylint at times on my code. I forget to run Pepit at times. And these are small things which I've learned over the way. So whenever I code, let's say I use Vim for my, as an IDE, I have those plugins built into my Vim, right? So that I don't miss out on the stuff. I keep a checklist of things saying, hey, if I'm writing a piece of code, these are the 7 or 8 things which are critical for me. And I should be able to ensure that those things are done before I go ahead and push my code. So over a period of time, we learn those things, right? But as long as we're learning, we do not repeat the same mistakes. That is perfectly fine. We all make mistakes from dropping databases to, pushing in the wrong code, not understanding the requirement, not doing a thorough code review, not thinking about scale. And those things they come back and bite us. And then we have to go into the mode of fixing them again. But that's what it is, especially when you're growing very fast. Yep.
Thanks, Kapil. So that was very helpful. So a few more questions around, especially around like at a very high level, what does the hiring process structure for software engineering look like at Delhivery, and also in a little broader sense at the product-based companies in India, right? The better product-based companies in India. So what does and the second question in line after that would be key. So typically the better product companies end up hiring from tier 1 colleges, right? So what is the importance of a degree? How would you guys be open or to hire from programs like Attain. How do you look at the entire scenario? What are the main challenges you face in terms of sourcing, recruiting people?
Correct. So the hiring process on the campus side is very straightforward. We typically have a problem statement, one or two problem statements that we normally use tools like HackerEarth, for example, and we go to the campus, and there's a minimum threshold that we look at. Again, the idea over there is to see if person knows the basic core fundamentals or not. Once the shortlisted people go through it, we normally have interviews, where the interviews are more around, hey, what kind of person is whom we are looking at. Is the person really excited, energetic? Is the person able to articulate the problem statements? Just repeat this. For example, one of my favorite things is, when I give somebody a test, the first question I'm saying, hey, just tell me what you understood. A lot of time, I've seen people just jump right into the solution. They miss out on the basics. They miss out on calling assumptions. Those are small things that I would typically check, saying, hey, it's okay if the final solution is not the correct. It's okay if you do not solve the complete problem. Okay, but did you look at the entire process over there or not, right? And that is what is more critical. That thinking process is what we normally value more. And then, of course, analytical thinking comes over there, right? One of the example of how I think about it is a great analogy is golf, where when you're looking at playing golf, I don't know how many of you have played golf, or I'm sure you would have seen how people swing the ball over there and hit the ball, right? When you're focusing just on hitting the ball, you may once in a while hit the ball, the shot may go. But if you're focusing on getting your swing right, you're focusing on getting your back right, holding the club properly, and get the right swing, over a period of time, you'll master it and you'll be able to hit the ball each and every time. So the focus is to make sure, is the person, thinking about focusing on how to get the swing right. So how is the person approaching the problem, right? How is this person calling other assumptions? Has the person really understood the problem? And some of the folks even come back and question, like, why, what is the meaning of this? And those are the good one, because people need to ask questions. We may not normally, don't expect us to give you the right problems. In real world, when we throw a problem at somebody, it may not be the actual problem. Maybe they're trying to solve something else and they're hiding away something. And not that they want to hide it, but they're not aware of that. We need to be aware of those things. So the idea is people should question, and those are things which we value a little bit more over there. So that's pretty much from the campus side. On the lateral hiring, we normally drill down more in the technology side of things. We spend a lot of time in figuring out how somebody has scaled systems, how somebody has set up the backend databases, NoSQL, RDBMS. Do people understand the basics or the differences over there? Why is NoSQL being preferred right now? The idea is to drill down a little bit more over there. And also we spend some time on their past achievements, which they feel, hey, I worked on a certain architecture and I did a bunch of things. So we try to go deep into saying, hey, why did you do those things? What were the reasons behind it? Were the reasons because the person thought they were right, or he was just executing orders on somebody else? And then there are behavioral attributes more on the core values, the culture fit. So that's a high level on the hiring side of things. Even there was a second part of the question, if you can repeat that.
Sure, yeah. So how do you look at, in this age and time, you guys also go to tier 1, tier 2 colleges, right, to hire. So how do you look at, how open, or how do you look at hiring from programs like Attain, which are not necessarily accredited by the government, but the skill sets are there to some extent, maybe more. But the accreditation part is missing, the degree part per se is missing, right? So these are non-traditional alternatives.
Got it. So in the past, we have hired people without a degree. We do make certain exceptions in certain cases, but typically we do look at a degree. And honestly, may not be the best way to filter out or judge a person's ability. But that's a process that for some reason we follow, because and I'm sorry to say this thing, but this is just easier for me to filter out things. If there's a better way for me to identify or judge somebody on the capability, I'd rather go for that. That's gone through a certain set of skill sets. I know they have a certain base over there, and I'm definitely happy to work with you guys later to see how we can start rolling out offers to people who have completed the courses at ANU. So definitely, that is something I'm definitely excited about. Right? And I know we have been talking about this for the last 6 months to 1 year. What are some of the course content? How should be structured? And because those are the gaps that we see in the industry. If somebody can fill them for us and somebody joins us and is already gone through some of those things, it's easier for me to take a call. Now, in the absence of such courses and absence of such certifications, it becomes difficult to figure out because there's so many people who, when we go and start talking to them, right? And a lot of time people don't even know about delivery or the kind of roles we are offering. So the idea is to say, hey, somehow able to shortlist people who we think may be the right fit. So that's the reason why we try to do the test. And we also try to limit ourselves to a certain set of universities. We do go to a very handful of IITs. We don't go to a lot of IITs anymore. We do go to NITs, we go to triple ITs, we go to LNNIT, MNIT Jaipur, we go to some colleges in South. So it's spread of colleges, and it's not like we only go to tier 1 colleges. We do go to tier 2 colleges also. And if you have any suggestions on certain colleges where you feel that people with COMSI background or other fields have the right skill sets or have the right exposure, and there's a hunger where they are happy to explore and try out different set of things, please do let me know. I'm happy to see how I can include them in my list. We do want to double down on our efforts of getting people directly from the campus. I think we have a steady set of people right now. I have enough senior people built into the organization. And I think it's, in my opinion, and whatever I've learned over the last, I've been working for almost since 2000. When people are fresh out of college, it's very easy for me to work with that set of people. Because this is a set of people who are into the industry, they're learning new things. And also there's so much hunger in new people to pick up new things, try out new things, to make a difference. And they don't come with any baggage. Typically when people have worked in certain organizations, and especially the first organization that you all will work in, you will pick up the culture from that organization, right? And you will start imbibing those core values slowly, unconsciously, right? And when you have a certain change of the culture, those things become difficult. So when a lateral hiring, for example, the cultural fit becomes a lot more critical for me. In a campus hiring, I'm like perfectly fine. I know the person will mold themselves and will be able to fit in very well. So those are some of the things that we see. And yeah, I did mention that happy to look at ANU and certain other certifications to get people directly from.
Awesome. Thanks, Kapil. So a slight follow-up question. I'm not sure if you had a chance to go through some of the projects which our students did. If you did get a chance, then do you have any early initial feedback on it? And keeping in mind that was just 30% into the course, right? And many of these are students who did not have a software engineering background beforehand. Did you get a chance to go through any of those?
I did not go through. Sorry, man. Apologies. I'll go through it later and I'll drop you a note, and you should definitely pass it on to everybody else.
Sure. Awesome. Very cool. So another major concern which students have is given in this age of AI ML where things are getting commoditized, the skill sets required are increasing and changing every day. How do you look at the software engineering or specifically the full stack development profile and the requirements and the role going forward in future?
Sure. So there's nothing new in technology changing. Let me just call that out first. Right. When I started my career, at that time people were coming out of the whole Y2K bug. So yes, I'm pretty old now. So and there was a big set of people who only knew how to do Y2K. And when we started off at that time, the web development was picking up like anything. The concept of RESTful API, etc., was still very, very new. We were still developing on WAP. I don't even know if you guys know what WAP is. There were the very early stage mobile interfaces which were being worked upon. And that time in 2000, 2001, they were supposed to revolutionize the entire mobile side of things, right? And over a period of time, the SOA, APIs, mobile started picking up. Web started taking a slight backseat over there. And then in, I think, 2007, 2008, the Web 2.0 rage came in, and then Web 2.0 with how we can do streaming data sets, how we can make the interfaces more effective. But in a nutshell, the point I'm trying to make is the technology keeps on changing. Yes, the cycles earlier would have been around 10 years. Now it's maybe 5 years, possibly. Um, so what does not change is the basics, the core of building a scalable architecture, how the data sets interact with each other. What are my critical data sets? What are the business outcomes I need? Those are the things that won't change. The underlying technology stack will continue to evolve. Again, take an example from what I did in early 2000. I used to work on purely scripting languages. I worked on Tickle, Perl, JS, ASPs, and right now I'm working on Python, Node, worked on Golang, and a bunch of other things. Because my basic fundamentals around the core programming remain same. I am able to pick up new different programming languages. My basic fundamentals about what databases are, how should I use them, what are the strengths of different databases, how the data should be structured, they still remain the same. How should I index my data sets? What is an index? What are different kind of indexes? What is a sparse index? How in the background the underlying technology databases may continue to change, right? And then we do see a bunch of NoSQL databases have been taking over for the last almost 7 to 8 or 10 years, right? And there's a reason why they're taking over. The reason is simple, because I'm able to collect so much more data right now. Storage is damn cheap, much cheaper than what it used to be in late 90s, early 2000s. And I have access to so much data. How do I put that data very quickly into my databases? And that's the reason why I need databases which don't worry about different constraints, and I can dump them directly over there. And given that I have so much data and I'm going to collect so much data, I have to do something around analytics. I have to be able to mine that data to identify patterns over there. And that's where the tools like ML, AI, and all those things start coming in. So yes, is ML AI critical? Absolutely. Is ML AI something that is new? Absolutely not. The AI has been around, machine learning has been around since the 60s or since the 50s maybe, right? Just give me 1 second. Sorry, apologies for that. So the idea over there is, the MLAI is critical, definitely, right? And the understanding of what those algos behind there, what are the mathematics behind that, right? What is the regression testing we talk about? What is the logarithmic testing? We should understand those things, right? Once we understand those things, it's much easier for us to adopt new technologies. I think that's what a lot of us miss out on things. Even on the basic analytics, people miss out on basic statistics and they try to do BI analytics on top of it. If I don't understand a stats point of view, it's very difficult for me to adopt new things. And same is true with technology. And in next 5 years, yes, things will evolve, things will change. They will definitely change. And then think about it, right now, there's a big focus on AI, ML, but a lot of those things will become commoditized, right? Think about mobile apps, think about the development on the mobile, or even the REST frameworks that we talk about. It's so much easier to develop on different platforms now. Same will happen for AI, ML. It's already happening. For example, there are so many different out-of-the-box APIs available from Google, Azure, AWS, where with a basic understanding, I'm able to pick them up, plug them into my applications, and get started. Especially around computer vision, speech, those are some of the areas where we have seen a big push coming in. So yes, we should be able to pick up those things. We should be aware of what is happening, but at the same time, don't lose the fundamentals. That is very, very critical. Yeah.
Thanks, Kapil. So in the last 10 minutes, I'd like to open the floor and take a few questions from our audience. So anyone, you can feel free to unmute your mic one at a time and ask whatever questions you have.
No questions?
Hi, my name is Ravi.
Hey, Ravi.
Hi, sir. Actually, my question is regarding what is the first impression of IT recruiter when he sees a person coming from a non-IT background? Because there are few people who are from the non-IT background, not from the computer science background, but they are aspiring to get into the IT field. They usually get rejections because of the non-IT background. But there are some people who are having the skills to get into IT. So what is your take on this?
Yeah. So Ravi, unfortunately, as as we were talking about earlier, also, given the from a recruiter's point of view, given the number of inbounds that come to them or people reaching out to them, unfortunately, we have simplified or tried to simplify our life by putting certain filters around, the college, the degree, or some specific skill sets. And unfortunately, we don't focus on saying, hey, these are the capabilities that I'm looking for. And the person is able to meet those capabilities. So that gap definitely exists right now. So from an IT recruiter point of view, you will face those challenges, at least when you're going to look at the first job. Once you have the first job, or wherever you have, let's say, spent at least an year in an area where you have been able to demonstrate your technical skill sets, where you have accomplished certain, or made certain achievements around, be it on the website, on a data side, on the backend side, wherever it is, the recruiters will start looking at you from a different perspective post that. I do understand the first time it will continue to be a challenge, but once you have been in the fold at least 1 year in a certain company, it will become much easier for people to identify you based on your capabilities and skill sets. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? So in the meantime, one question which also came up a lot was that how do you personally keep your skill sets updated? Like, do you have dedicated time around that, or do you just go about as a part of your day-to-day work experiment? Like, what is your framework, especially in context of what you also mentioned earlier? How do you personally keep yourself updated or on the latest things, what to use?
Right. So at least a couple of years back, I would typically get my hands dirty on something or the other. I still remember, for example, Elasticsearch, when it was launched, I pretty much got very excited about it, and I tried to do certain POCs. Same thing when Mongo was launched in 2011 sometime, or maybe slightly earlier than that. I got excited by that and tried to see how we can play around with that. So that was like a couple of years back. Now it's becomes very difficult for me to get my hands dirty into the day-to-day stuff, right? So what I normally do is I spend a lot of time with my key architects. I also spend a lot of time with experts across the industry. There may be people who have from other startups, or there will be people at senior positions in other technology companies, or just reaching out to people in places like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and bouncing off with them. Hey, these are the problems that we are facing. How are you thinking about that? A lot of my time right now goes into figuring out how my data layers are structured. Data is very, very critical to us. We are a technology and data-led organization. We capture and collect a lot of data, but we don't do a good job of cleaning, maintaining, and doing a lot of intelligent stuff on it, which I feel we can do a lot more than what we are doing right now. So that is one of the things which I'm getting into the thick of things. Now, I don't per se get into the coding side of things, but I do explore a lot around saying, hey, what does GCP offer? What does AWS offer? What are other tools in the market? Reach out to people, go through the details with them. Understand, hey, what are the critical things for me as an organization which are more critical? For example, right now for me, ability to access data across the org is a big challenge, because we have so many different sources of data, variety of data, that people get lost around, hey, what to pull from here and how to look at it. How do I make that simple? How do I make sure that my data sciences team has access to 7-8 years of data in one shot? How do I make it simpler for them to run, let's say, Spark ML jobs, extract the data, clean the data, and make the entire process condense it into a few hours from a couple of days that is right now. So I do get involved in such kind of activities. And that's where I start picking up on specific tools, specific areas where I think we can make, as an organization, we can make a big difference. So yeah, that's how I try to keep myself up to speed. And yeah, if I do get a chance, at least once in 3 months or so, I do like to, if nothing else, at least pick up a small code or start looking at my data marts or start looking at some of the data sets to see if I still have the basic knowledge in place or not. Right. I also do spend a time once in a while on Coursera. I try to finish one or two courses on new technology sets or new things, frameworks that are coming up. For example, the last course I did on Coursera was Learn How to Learn. It's got nothing to do with anything, but it was a great course just talking about how does the human mind function, how does the brain function, how you can learn and pick up new things. It's a great course. If you have time, please go and check it out. So I do spend time on such activities.
Awesome. Thanks, Kapil. So there are a few questions which have come in over Slack, but before that, like if anyone, we'll take like one or two more questions at max. So if anyone wants to unmute their mic and has any question which they want to ask, then
Hello, sir. I'm Shoaib Mandal. Hello, sir. Sir, my question is that why are the top software companies like Google, Microsoft, or Apple, something like that? Why those companies are outside from India? Why we do not create any companies like that?
sorry, Kapil. Yeah.
Yes. We could not hear.
Okay, so the question I'm looking at the question more around saying, hey, why don't we have such large organizations like Google, Microsoft, Amazon,
Yes.
out of India? I think the things are changing right now. I think there are some very large players in the market right now who are shaping the industries, different industries in India. I think if I think about it, likes of Flipkart, for example, there's a great amount of work being done over there.
Yes.
Even there are companies like, I know Freshdesk, etc., which have been working out of India and have a big global presence and provide tech services across the globe. So there are definitely companies over there. They may not be as visible as a Microsoft, Google, or a Facebook, etc. But I think things are definitely changing. People are getting more exposed to what we can do, and we have access to a lot more resources than what we had earlier. But even if I think about it, right, even in the late 90s or so, I think what Infosys did, what TCS did, there are some pretty large organizations, and they have been able to, compete at various levels with some of such enterprises. So yeah, I think is that, I don't have a right answer, but I think things are definitely changing. Where we are moving away from a pure services mindset or an IT backend mindset to more around driving and innovating and picking up new business models and start disrupting different industries. And you see that to happen more and more, in the next couple of years.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Tell me another thing that actually for our young generation, actually, what we need to do if we want to create something like that, and which sector we have to focus.
I think, yeah, Kapil, so let me just rephrase because many people have, I think let's take this as the last question, but many people, especially from you, have this question about starting out as a co-founder, getting the team together, thinking from first principles, breaking out things, especially in a complex business like delivery. How did you guys go about it? What, if you were to redo it, then how would you do things differently, or what things you got right, what things could be better?
Sure. See, if I just think about, my career journey, right? So this is my third startup. I was with a IT services company. I was with Sapient for almost 8-9 years. So the first step for me was to, just step away from a typical IT consulting mindset. And that was very difficult for me, right? But my first two startups taught me a lot about how to scale and run businesses, or what not to worry about when you're still identifying or discovering a business. Specific to delivery, if I think about it, the first 2 years, or first 1 or 2 years, most of the time we as founders spend in figuring out, hey, is our business model right? If I have to scale my business model, what are the key areas or the element that we have to double down on? And with a very crystal focus on, just focusing on those 3 or 4 key metrics, how do we continue to make a distinction for us in the market, right? If I think more from a technology point of view, I did not worry a lot about the best practices or about, is my code the perfect or not. I worried more about, hey, for me to run the business, for my operations to be successful, for me to meet my service levels, these are the 2 or 3 things which are most critical. And I need to get it out now, because the more I delay, somebody is suffering because of that. And how do I move in that direction? It's only after a period of time that we move from basic systems, starting adding intelligence to it, starting using the data to guide the system, etc. Right? Uh, but the question around, hey, how should one think about a startup, right? It's a difficult question, right? What area you want to get into? It's a personal choice, in my opinion, right? For example, when we started off as a food delivery company at Delhivery. Now, within 2-3 months, we realized that e-commerce seems to be a much bigger opportunity than food delivery. Food delivery is fine. We can definitely scale, we can grow, but the way the unit economics work out and the way the number of orders, the volume is working out, we felt that e-commerce was a much better bet, which in hindsight definitely seemed to be the right one. So typically, one of the advice that I normally give to the startup founders is that, hey, you started with a certain thought process, you started with a certain objective in mind, but the first 3 to 4 months, when you start getting in the thick of things, as you start discovering the business models, the problems, don't be too stuck on to your specific original idea. You should be open or be flexible in figuring out, hey, is there some other opportunity which I've unlocked during this process, which may be a much bigger opportunity than what I'm doing. I've seen a lot of startups, they continue to work on a certain idea. There are multiple indicators out in the market in their own metrics, which indicate that, hey, it is not really scaling up, it is not really taking off. But they continue persisting for a year or 2 years or 3 years, and then finally wrap it up. I think the idea is, again, to, as you start doing something, understand what it is. If the model doesn't work, try to pivot, try to find new thing, and quickly move on. Try out, fail fast, try something else, and then continue looking at. And the other advice over there would be the market that you're getting in right now. There's no specific area saying, hey, this is a lucrative market or this is the right thing to go in. I think you need to figure out what you are really excited about, what you think you can make a difference over there. And then look at the overall market and saying, is it sizable enough for me to make a fundamental change over there? And then just go deep over there and play around. And as you're playing around the market, keep on trying out different models, keep on pivoting. Just don't get hung up or stuck on one thing. I hope I answered that. Let me know if,
yep. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Awesome, Kapil. So I think we'll wrap the session up with that. And thanks again for taking our time to talk to us.
Thank you.
I hope everyone benefited from it a lot. And great to have you over here.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. It was great talking to you guys. And hope we'll connect again.